The sleeve slipped. Silver caught it immediately, yanking the fabric back down over her wrist with practiced speed. But for one terrible moment, her scars had been visible, the raised white lines that crisscrossed her forearm like a map of every time she had disappointed her former pack. No one had seen. She was sure of it. The servants around her were too busy preparing for the visiting king's arrival to notice a lowly Omega adjusting her dress. She was invisible here, just as she had been invisible everywhere else. That was the safest way to be. "You there, Omega?" Silver's heart stopped. She turned slowly, keeping her head bowed, her arms pressed tight against her sides. The woman addressing her was Beta Helena, head of the household staff, a sharp-eyed woman who missed nothing and forgave less. She looked at Silver the way everyone looked at Omegas, like something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "The king's delegation arrives within the hour. You're to serve refreshments in the Great Hall. Try not to embarrass the Alpha with your clumsiness." "Yes, Beta Helena." Silver kept her voice soft, submissive, non-threatening, all the things an Omega was supposed to be. "And for the gods' sake, keep yourself covered. No one wants to see—" Helena gestured vaguely at Silver's body, her lip curling with distaste. "Whatever it is you're hiding under those sleeves." So she had noticed. Of course she had noticed. Nothing escaped Helena's attention. "Yes, Beta Helena." Helena swept away, and Silver let out a shaky breath. Her hands trembled as she smoothed down her sleeves, making sure every inch of scarred skin was hidden. The dress she wore was deliberately chosen. Long sleeves, high collar, nothing that could slip or shift to reveal what lay beneath. 3 years. She had been with this pack for 3 years, transferred like property when her old Alpha decided she was more trouble than she was worth. The scars had earned her that exile. An Omega who bore the marks of punishment was damaged goods, a reminder of failure that no Alpha wanted in their household. Alpha Darius had taken her anyway, but only because she came cheap. And he had made it clear from the first day that any further marks would be added by his own hand. She hadn't disappointed him yet. She had learned to be perfect, invisible, silent and obedient, and utterly without value except what she could provide through service. It was a hollow existence, but it was survival. And for an Omega with her history, survival was the only thing that mattered. The Great Hall was chaos when she arrived. Servants rushed everywhere, arranging flowers and polishing silver and arguing about seating arrangements. The visiting king was apparently very important. King Kalan of the northern Lycans, ruler of the most powerful pack in the known world. Everyone was terrified of making a mistake. Silver found her assigned station and stood motionless, a tray of goblets balanced on her palms. She was good at this, at being furniture, at existing in spaces without taking up room. The other servants bustled around her like water around a stone, barely acknowledging her presence. That was fine. That was safe. The doors opened, and everything changed. She felt him before she saw him. A presence so powerful it pressed against her like a physical force, making her knees weak and her breath catch. Her Omega instinct screamed at her, not in fear, but in something else, something she didn't recognize. Then he walked through the door, and Silver understood. The Lycan king was enormous, taller than any Alpha she had ever seen, with shoulders broad enough to block out the light. Dark hair fell in waves past his jaw, and his face was all hard angles and shadowed intensity. But it was his eyes that captured her. Pale gold, like sunlight through amber, sweeping the room with an authority that made everyone else seem small. His gaze passed over the assembled nobles, the nervous Alpha Darius, the bowing servants. And then it stopped. On her. Silva's heart slammed against her ribs. She dropped her eyes immediately, the way she had been trained. Don't look at Alphas. Don't draw attention. Don't exist more than absolutely necessary. But she could feel him still looking at her, could feel that golden gaze burning into her skin like a brand. Lord Darius. The king's voice was deep, rough. It sent shivers down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. Your hospitality is appreciated. My men have travelled far. Of course, Your Majesty. Please, make yourself comfortable. Refreshments will be served immediately. That was her cue. Silva stepped forward, head still bowed, and began to circulate with her tray. She moved like a ghost through the crowd, offering goblets without making eye contact, accepting empty cups without acknowledgement. She was good at this. She had spent years perfecting it. She didn't see the trailing edge of a noblewoman's gown until it was too late. Her foot caught. She stumbled. The tray tilted, and for one horrible moment, she thought she was going to spill wine all over the visiting delegation. A hand caught her elbow, massive, warm, steadying her before she could fall. The tray righted itself. The goblets stayed in place. And the Lycan king was standing right beside her, his golden eyes boring into hers from inches away. Careful, he murmured. Are you all right? She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. No Alpha had ever caught her when she fell. No Alpha had ever asked if she was all right. They would have let her crash to the ground and then punished her for the mess. Yes, Your Majesty. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You have nothing to apologize for. His voice was gentle, but his grip on her elbow didn't loosen. His thumb brushed against her sleeve, and something flickered in his expression. You're trembling. I'm fine, I should. His other hand came up, and before she could stop him, he was pushing back her sleeve. Time stopped. Silva watched in frozen horror as the fabric slid up her arm, revealing the network of scars beneath. Old ones faded to white, newer ones still pink and raised, a history of punishment written on her skin for everyone to see. The king went very still. Who did this? His voice had changed, gone cold, deadly. Who hurt you? No one. I mean, it doesn't matter. Please, Your Majesty, I need to. Who hurt you? The question wasn't a question anymore. It was a command, vibrating with an authority that her Omega instincts couldn't disobey. My old pack, she whispered. My old Alpha. When I made mistakes, She couldn't finish. Couldn't say the words out loud in a hall full of people who already thought she was worthless. The king's golden eyes blazed with something terrifying, something ancient and violent and barely contained. And your current Alpha? His gaze cut to Darius, who had gone pale across the room. Has he added to these marks? No, he hasn't. I've been careful. I haven't given him reason to. Reason. The word came out like a curse. You think there could be a reason for this? Silva didn't understand what was happening. Why was the Lycan king holding her arm like it was precious? Why was he looking at her scars like they made him want to tear someone apart? Why was he asking questions that no Alpha had ever bothered to ask? I'm just an Omega, she whispered. It doesn't matter what happens to me. Something cracked in his expression. The cold fury gave way to something else, something raw and aching and unbearably tender. It matters, he said roughly. It matters more than you know. He released her arm, and she stumbled back, clutching her sleeve down over the exposed scars. The entire hall had gone silent. Everyone was staring. At her, at the king, at the marks she had spent 3 years hiding. Lord Darius. The king's voice rang out, sharp as a blade. This Omega. What is her name? Darius looked like he might be sick. Silver, your majesty. She came to us from the Eastern Pack. She's nothing, just a servant. She is not nothing. The words cut through the air like thunder. She is my mate. The room erupted in chaos. Silver couldn't hear it, couldn't see it. Her vision had narrowed to a single point. The Lycan king, standing before her, his golden eyes blazing with a possessive fury that should have terrified her. "Your mate?" she breathed. "That's not... I can't be..." "You are." He closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands with a gentleness that made her eyes sting. "I felt it the moment I walked through those doors. My wolf recognized you, claimed you. And now that I've seen what they've done to you..." His jaw clenched. "No one will ever hurt you again. I swear it on my crown, my kingdom, my life. You are mine, Silver, and I protect what's mine." She was crying. She hadn't realized it until she felt the tears streaming down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable. "I don't understand," she sobbed. "Why would you want me? I'm broken. I'm scarred. You're perfect." He wiped her tears with his thumbs. "You're everything I've been searching for across 3 centuries. And those scars..." His voice roughened. "Those scars are proof of what you survived. They're not shame, Silver. They're strength." She wanted to believe him, wanted it so desperately that her chest ached with it. "I don't know how to be anything but what I am," she whispered. "I don't know how to be a queen." "Then I'll teach you." He pressed his forehead to hers. "We'll learn together. All I ask is that you give me a chance. Let me prove that not all alphas are monsters. Let me show you what you're worth." She should say no, should remind him that she was damaged goods, that she would only disappoint him, that Omegas like her didn't get happy endings. But his hands were warm on her face. His golden eyes held nothing but sincerity. And somewhere deep inside her, in a place she had thought was dead, hope flickered to life. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll give you a chance." The king smiled, fierce and tender and full of promise. "That's all I need." They left that same night. Silver didn't have much to pack: a few worn dresses, a comb that had belonged to her mother, a threadbare blanket she had carried from pack to pack like a talisman. Everything she owned fit into a single bag, and even that felt like too much. "Is this all?" Kaelin asked, watching her gather her things in the tiny servants' quarters she had called home for 3 years. "It's more than most Omegas have." She kept her voice neutral, factual. She had learned not to complain about circumstances she couldn't change. Something dark flickered across his face. "That's going to change. Everything is going to change." She didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. The journey north took 4 days. Kaelin had brought a carriage, an actual carriage, with cushioned seats and fur blankets and a small stove that kept the interior warm. Silver had never been inside anything so fine. She spent the first hour afraid to touch anything, certain she would somehow ruin it. "You can relax," Kaelin said gently, watching her perch on the edge of the seat like a bird ready to flee. "Nothing in here is more valuable than you." "That's not..." "I'm not valuable. I'm just an Omega." "You're my mate." He said it like it settled everything. like being his mate made her precious automatically, regardless of her rank or her history, or the scars hidden beneath her sleeves. And even if you weren't, you would still be valuable. Every person has worth, Silver. The fact that your previous alphas didn't see it says everything about them and nothing about you. She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like this, like she mattered, like her existence was something to be celebrated rather than tolerated. It felt like a language she didn't speak, full of words she didn't understand. "Tell me about them," Kaelin said quietly. "Your old pack. What happened there?" Silver's hands tightened in her lap. "You don't want to hear about that." "I do. I want to understand what you survived. I want to know what I'm helping you heal from." She was quiet for a long moment. The carriage swayed gently, the rhythm almost soothing. Outside, snow was beginning to fall. "I was born an Omega," she said finally. "The lowest rank. My parents died when I was young. There was a sickness that went through the pack. I was raised by whoever had time for me, which wasn't many people." "How old were you?" "6, when they died." She kept her voice flat, controlled. If she let emotion in, she would fall apart. The Alpha at the time was decent enough. He didn't hurt Omegas. But when he died and his son took over, she stopped. The memories pressed against her like a physical weight. His son was different, Kaelin guessed. His son believed that Omegas existed to serve and suffer, that our pain was— her voice cracked, that our pain was necessary, that it kept us obedient, that an Omega who didn't bear the marks of discipline was an Omega who hadn't been properly trained. The temperature in the carriage seemed to drop. Kaelin's golden eyes had gone cold, deadly, the eyes of a predator scenting prey. "He did this to you." It wasn't a question. "The scars on your arms, he put them there." "Not all of them. Some were from the betas who carried out his orders. Some were from other Omegas, trying to prove their loyalty by punishing those weaker than themselves." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's how it works, you know. Cruelty flows downhill. Everyone hurts whoever is beneath them because it's the only power they have." "That's not how it works in my kingdom." "So you say." "So I'll prove." He reached across the carriage and took her hand. His grip was warm, steady, an anchor in a sea of painful memories. In the Northern Kingdom, Omegas are cherished, protected, valued for their gifts instead of punished for their nature. What happened to you, what was done to you, would be a capital offense in my territory. Capital. Death. The Alpha who marked you, if he were in my kingdom, would be executed for his crimes. Silver stared at him. "You would kill an Alpha for hurting an Omega." "I would kill anyone who hurt someone under my protection." His voice was absolute, unwavering. "Rank doesn't determine worth, Silver. It determines responsibility. Alphas have power so that we can protect those weaker than ourselves, not so we can abuse them." She wanted to believe him, wanted it so desperately that her chest ached with it. But believing meant hoping, and hoping meant the possibility of disappointment. She had learned long ago that hope was a luxury Omegas couldn't afford. "What happened to him?" Kaelin asked. "The Alpha who hurt you." "Nothing. He's still there, still ruling, still—" She swallowed. "Still doing what he does. I was transferred because I became an inconvenience. Too many scars to hide. Too much evidence of his discipline. He sold me to Darius to make me someone else's problem." "Sold you?" "That's how it works. Omegas belong to whoever holds their contract. We're property. We don't get to choose where we go or who we serve. The fury in Kaelin's eyes was terrifying, but it wasn't directed at her. She could feel that somehow, through the bond, she was only beginning to understand. His rage was for her, not at her. "You're not property anymore," he said, his voice rough with barely contained violence. "You belong to no one but yourself. And if you choose to be with me, if you choose to be my queen, it will be because you want to, not because some contract forces you." "I don't know how to choose things." The admission came out small, broken. "I've never been allowed to want anything. Every time I did, every time I hoped for something better, it was taken away, beaten out of me. I learned to stop wanting because wanting hurt too much." Kaelin was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved across the carriage, settling beside her, pulling her gently against his side. "Then we'll start small," he said. "Tell me one thing you want right now. Anything. Food, rest, a different blanket. Something small, something safe." Silver thought about it. Such a simple question, and yet it felt impossible to answer. What did she want? She had spent so long suppressing her desires that she couldn't even identify them anymore. "I want to be warm," she said finally. "I'm always cold. Even when there's a fire, I'm cold." Without a word, Kaelin pulled a fur blanket from the seat across from them and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he tucked her closer against him, sharing his body heat. "Better?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. She was warm, actually warm, for the first time in years, and not just from the blanket, from him, from his presence beside her, solid and steady and somehow safe. "What else?" he asked. She hesitated. "I want to believe you, that things will be different, that you won't hurt me." "I won't." Everyone says that. Every alpha says that, right before they... "I'm not every alpha." He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I'm the Lycan king. I've ruled for 300 years. I've never raised a hand against an Omega in my life, and I never will. But I know you can't believe that just because I say it. So I'll prove it, day by day, moment by moment, until you trust me." "What if I never do?" "Then I'll keep trying anyway." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, soft, gentle, asking nothing in return. "I would rather spend eternity earning your trust than have you afraid of me for a single moment." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She wiped at them angrily. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm—" "Don't apologize for crying." He gathered her closer. "You've spent years holding everything in. It's okay to let it out." "I'm not used to being allowed to feel things." "Then get used to it." His voice was fierce. "You're allowed to feel everything, Silver. Joy, anger, sadness, hope, all of it. Your emotions are not weaknesses to be punished. They're part of who you are." She broke then. The tears she had been holding back for years, for decades, came flooding out in a wave she couldn't control. She sobbed against his chest, shaking with grief and rage and a desperate, aching hope she was terrified to feel. And Kaelin held her through all of it. He didn't shush her or tell her to calm down. He just wrapped his arms around her and let her fall apart, catching every broken piece. When the tears finally subsided, she was exhausted, wrung out. But something inside her felt lighter, cleaner. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Stop apologizing." He kissed the top of her head. "You have nothing to be sorry for." "I ruined your shirt." "I have other shirts." She could hear the smile in his voice. "How do you feel?" She considered the question. "Empty." but not in a bad way, like I've been carrying something heavy for so long that I forgot what it felt like to put it down. That's the first step. He tilted her face up to look at him. There will be more tears, more pain. Healing isn't fast, and it isn't easy. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. I'll be here, every step of the way. Why? The question came out raw, desperate. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. Because you're my mate. He said it simply, like it explained everything. Because the bond that connects us means your pain is my pain, your joy is my joy. Because when I look at you, I see someone who has survived things that would have destroyed anyone else, and I am in awe of your strength. Because I love you, Silver. I know it's fast. I know you don't believe it. But I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life proving it. She didn't know what to say, so she just leaned into his warmth and let herself be held. And for the first time in her life, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was safe. The Northern Kingdom was everything Kaelin had promised, and nothing Silver had expected. She had braced herself for more of the same. Different castle, different alpha, same cruelty, wearing a different face. But from the moment they passed through the gates, she knew something was different. The servants smiled at her. Actually smiled, not the tight, fearful expressions she was used to, but genuine warmth. The guards inclined their heads in respect. And everywhere she looked, she saw Omegas walking freely, dressed in fine clothes, treated with the same courtesy as any other rank. "This isn't real," she whispered, watching an Omega woman laugh with a group of betas in the courtyard. "This can't be real." "It's real." Kaelin's hand found hers, warm and steady. This is how things should be everywhere. How they will be, eventually, if I have anything to say about it. The rooms he gave her were connected to his own, a suite of chambers more luxurious than anything she had ever seen. The bed was enormous, piled with furs in soft whites and silvers. The windows looked out over snow-capped mountains, and a fire blazed in the hearth, filling the space with warmth. "These are mine?" she asked, still unable to process the sheer size of it. The servants' quarters she had occupied for the past 3 years could have fit in this room 10 times over. "These are yours, for as long as you want them." Kaelin leaned against the doorframe. "I've assigned attendants to help you, Omegas, all of them. Women who understand what you've been through, who won't judge or ask questions you're not ready to answer." "Omega attendants?" "They're the best at what they do. And I thought you might be more comfortable with people who share your experience." He paused. "But if you'd prefer someone else—" "No." The word came out too quickly. "No, thank you. That's thoughtful." She didn't know how to reconcile this man with everything she had learned about alphas. He was supposed to be a monster. The Lycan king. The most powerful alpha in the world. The one they whispered about in fearful tones. And yet, here he was, arranging Omega attendants so she would feel comfortable. "I'll give you time to settle in," he said. "Rest, eat. The healer will come by this evening to check on you. Just a routine examination, nothing invasive. I want to make sure you're healthy. I don't need— Please." His voice softened. "Let me take care of you. Just this once." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Silver had expected the kindness to fade, for the mask to slip, the true nature of this place to reveal itself. But day after day, nothing changed. The servants remained friendly. The guards remained respectful. And Kaelin remained patient, gentle, utterly devoted to her comfort. He visited her every day, but never pushed for more than she was willing to give. They would sit by the fire and talk about everything, about nothing. He told her about his childhood, his parents, the centuries he had spent ruling alone. She told him about her mother's lullabies, the way snow looked falling through pine branches, the small moments of beauty she had clung to in her darkest times. And slowly, impossibly, she began to heal. The nightmares came less frequently. The flinching eased. She learned to walk through the castle without keeping her head bowed, to make eye contact with people who greeted her, to accept kindness without waiting for the catch. "You're different," Kaelin observed one evening, studying her across the chessboard he had been teaching her to play. "Lighter, like you're finally starting to believe you're safe." "I'm starting to believe a lot of things." She moved a piece, probably the wrong one. She was still learning, and looked up at him. "Things I never thought I'd believe." "Such as?" "That not all alphas are monsters. That kindness can exist without strings. That maybe—" she hesitated. "That maybe I'm worth more than what I was told." Something blazed in his golden eyes. "You are worth everything, Silver. Everything." "I'm starting to believe that too." He reached across the board and took her hand. "Can I show you something?" She nodded, and he led her through the castle to a wing she had never explored. The corridors here were quieter, more private. He stopped before a heavy wooden door and pushed it open. The room beyond was small but beautiful. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and papers and strange instruments she didn't recognize. A desk sat beneath a window, cluttered with maps and correspondence. And on the far wall, someone had hung a series of portraits. "This is my private study," Kaelin said, "where I come when I need to think. No one else is allowed in here." He guided her to the portraits. "These are my parents, and my grandparents, and their parents before them." Silver studied the faces. They all shared the same golden eyes, the same strong features. But what struck her most was their expressions. Soft, loving, the look of people who had known happiness. "They were all mated," Kaelin continued. "Every king in my line going back 20 generations. They found their mates, loved them, built lives together. I used to look at these portraits and wonder if I would ever have what they had." He turned to face her. "I've been alone for 300 years, Silver. I'd given up hope. And then you found me." "And then I found you." He cupped her face in his hands. A woman with more scars than anyone should ever have to bear. A woman who was taught that she was worthless, that she existed only to suffer, that love was something Omegas didn't deserve. And I looked at you and saw the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I'm not beautiful. You are." His thumbs traced her cheekbones. "You are beautiful and brave, and so strong it takes my breath away. You survived things that would have broken anyone else. And you came out the other side still capable of kindness, still capable of hope, still capable of sitting across from a chessboard and learning something new." His voice roughened. "That's not nothing, Silver. That's everything." She was crying again. She seemed to cry a lot these days. But they weren't the desperate, hopeless tears of before. These were something different, something cleaner. "I love you," she said. The words surprised her as much as they surprised him. She hadn't planned to say them, hadn't known she was capable of feeling them. But they were true, she realized. Somewhere in the past weeks, between the gentle conversations and the patient chess lessons and the unwavering kindness, she had fallen in love with him. "Say it again." His voice was hoarse. I love you. She laughed through her tears. I didn't know I could. I didn't know there was anything left inside me that could feel this way. But I do. I love you, Kaylin. He kissed her. It was different from the gentle kisses he had pressed to her forehead, her hands, her hair. This was fierce, hungry. 300 years of loneliness meeting a lifetime of pain and somehow creating something beautiful in the collision. She kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. For once, she didn't think about her scars, didn't worry about being worthy. Just let herself feel, let herself want, let herself be loved. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were blazing gold. Mine, he growled. Tell me you're mine. Yours. She had never meant anything more. I'm yours. He swept her into his arms and carried her through the castle to her chambers. Their chambers now, she realized. He laid her on the bed like she was something precious, and then he proceeded to show her exactly what it felt like to be worshipped. Later, tangled in sheets that probably cost more than her entire previous existence, Silver traced the lines of his face with wondering fingers. I didn't know it could feel like that, she whispered. Like what? Good. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart beat beneath her palm. I didn't know touch could feel good. Every time someone touched me before, it was to hurt me. I thought... She stopped, her voice catching. You thought that was all touch could be? Yes. He pulled her closer, wrapping her in his arms like he could shield her from every painful memory. I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing you what touch should feel like, what love should feel like. You will never associate my hands with pain, Silver. Only pleasure. Only safety. Only love. She believed him. For the first time in her life, she believed. The message arrived 3 months later. Silver was in the garden, her garden now, a space Kaylin had given her to tend however she wished, when one of the guards approached with a letter. She took it without thinking, assuming it was another piece of household correspondence that needed the future queen's attention. Then she saw the seal, and her blood ran cold. The Eastern pack, her former pack, the place where she had earned every scar on her body. Her hands shook as she broke the seal and unfolded the paper. The words blurred before her eyes, but she forced herself to read them anyway. Alpha Marcus demanded her return. He claimed she had been transferred illegally, that her contract still belonged to him, that the Lycan king had no right to take what was his. He gave Kaylin 1 month to return his property or face the consequences. Silver couldn't breathe. He had found her. After all this time, after everything she had survived, after finally beginning to feel safe, he had found her. And he wanted her back. Silver? She looked up to find Kaylin striding across the garden, his expression shifting from concern to fury as he saw the paper in her hands. What is that? She couldn't speak, just held out the letter with trembling fingers. He read it in seconds. She watched his face transform, watched the gentle man she had come to love disappear beneath something ancient and terrible. His golden eyes blazed with a rage that made the air around him seem to crackle with power. He dares, Kaylin growled. He dares to call you property, to demand your return, to threaten me. He has a legal claim. The contract is meaningless. He crumpled the letter in his fist. You are my mate. You are under my protection. No contract in the world supersedes that. But if he comes here, if he brings his pack, then I will destroy him, The words were absolute, final, the promise of a king who had conquered armies. I will tear him apart with my bare hands for what he did to you, for every scar he put on your body, for every moment of pain he caused. Silva should have been frightened by the violence in his voice. Instead, she felt something else, something warm and fierce, a love so intense it took her breath away. Kaelin! No. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. Listen to me. He will never touch you again. He will never come near you again. I don't care what contracts he claims or what threats he makes. You are mine, Silva, and I protect what's mine. I don't want you to go to war for me. I would burn the world for you. He pulled back to look at her face. But it won't come to that. Alpha Marcus is a coward who preys on those weaker than himself. When he realizes what he's up against, he'll back down. You don't know him. He doesn't back down. He holds grudges. He has never faced me. Kaelin's voice was ice. He has never faced the Lycan king, and when he does, he will learn exactly what happens to alphas who hurt my mate. Silva wanted to believe him, but the fear was too deep, too old. She had spent years under Marcus's control, learning that there was no escape, no safety, no protection from his cruelty. The idea that someone could actually stop him felt impossible. What if he wins? She whispered. What if he takes me back? He won't. But what if he does? What if I have to go back to... Her voice broke. I can't. Kaelin, I can't go back there. I would rather die than... You're not going anywhere. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Do you hear me? You are staying right here. In our home, in our kingdom, in my arms. Alpha Marcus will have to go through me to get to you, and I promise you, Silva, he will not survive the attempt. She kissed him, desperately, fiercely, pouring every ounce of love and fear and trust into the contact. He kissed her back, just as fiercely, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. I love you, she gasped when they broke apart. I love you too. His forehead pressed against hers. And I will prove it. I will destroy everyone who ever hurt you, starting with him. The delegation from the Eastern Pack arrived 2 weeks later. Silva watched from the window of Kaelin's study as they rode through the gates. A dozen wolves in human form, led by a man she recognized even from this distance. Alpha Marcus. Older now, greyer, but with the same cruel twist to his mouth that had haunted her nightmares for years. She couldn't stop shaking. You don't have to face him. Kaelin stood beside her, his hand warm on the small of her back. You can stay here. I'll handle this alone. No? The word came out stronger than she expected. I need to see him. I need him to see me. I need him to know that I'm not the girl he broke anymore. Pride flickered in Kaelin's expression. Then, we face him together. They met in the great hall. Silva stood at Kaelin's side, dressed in a gown of silver and white, the colours of the Northern Queen. Her scars were visible for once, displayed deliberately on arms left bare. She was done hiding. Done being ashamed. Alpha Marcus's eyes found her immediately. They swept over her fine clothes, her crown, her unmarked posture of a woman who no longer cowered. Something ugly flickered in his expression. Silva. His voice was oily, familiar. It made her skin crawl. You've done well for yourself, playing queen to the Wolf King. She's not playing. Kaelin's voice cut through the hall like a blade. She is my queen, my mate, and you will address her with the respect she deserves." "Respect?" Marcus laughed. "She's an Omega, a piece of property I paid good money for. I've come to collect what's mine." "She was never yours." Kalen took a step forward, and every guard in the hall tensed. "She was a person you tortured, a woman you scarred, a soul you tried to break." His golden eyes blazed with fury. "And now you come to my kingdom, demanding I return her to your abuse. I have legal rights." "Your rights ended the moment you raised a hand to her." Kalen's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. "I've heard the reports, Marcus. I know what you did, not just to Silver, to every Omega who's ever had the misfortune of being in your pack. You're not an alpha. You're a monster wearing an alpha's face." Marcus's composure cracked. "You can't speak to me like that. I am Alpha of the Eastern Pack. I have treaties, allies." "You have nothing." Kalen moved faster than Silver's eyes could track. One moment he was at her side, the next he had Marcus by the throat, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing at all. "Your allies have already been informed of your crimes. Your treaties have been dissolved. Your pack has been placed under the protection of my kingdom, where Omegas are cherished instead of tortured." Marcus's face was turning purple. His guards shifted uncertainly, but none dared move against the Lycan king. "You have two choices," Kalen continued, his voice cold as ice. "You can renounce your claim to Silver, abdicate your position as Alpha, and spend the rest of your life in exile. Or you can die here, right now, with my hand around your throat. Choose." "You can't. This is. Choose." Silver watched the man who had haunted her nightmares for years dangle helplessly in Kalen's grip, watched the arrogance drain from his face, replaced by naked terror, watched him realize, finally, that he had no power here. "Exile," Marcus gasped. "I choose exile." Kalen held him for a moment longer, long enough to make the point, then dropped him to the ground. Marcus crumpled in a heap, gasping for air. "Get out of my kingdom," Kalen said. "If I ever see your face again, I'll finish what I started today." The guards dragged Marcus away. His delegation followed, all of them pale and shaken. Within minutes, the great hall was empty, except for Kalen and Silver. He turned to her, and his expression immediately softened. "Are you all right?" She should be shaken, should be terrified, traumatized, falling apart. But standing there, watching the monster from her past be destroyed by the man who loved her, she felt something else entirely. She felt free. "I'm perfect," she said. "I'm absolutely perfect." And when she kissed him, it tasted like victory. The wedding was held on the first warm day of spring. Silver stood before a mirror in the Queen's chambers, watching as attendants fussed with her gown, white silk that flowed like water, embroidered with silver thread in patterns that matched the scars on her arms. She had requested that specifically, had wanted her gown to honor her history instead of hiding it. "You're stunning," Kalen said from the doorway. She turned to find him watching her with those golden eyes that still made her heart race. He was resplendent in black and silver, the crown of the Northern Kingdom resting on his dark hair. He looked every inch the powerful king he was, and he looked at her, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony," she said, but she was smiling. "I've never been good at following rules." He crossed to her and took her hands. "Especially not when my mate is involved." 6 months. It had been 6 months since he had pushed back her sleeve in that great hall and whispered, "Who hurt my mate?" 6 months of healing, of growing, of learning what it meant to be loved. She had transformed in that time, not just in circumstance, but in spirit. The cowering Omega who expected pain had become a woman who walked with her head held high. The girl who hid her scars had become a queen who displayed them proudly. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I've been ready since the moment you looked at my scars and saw strength instead of shame." She squeezed his hands. "I just didn't know it yet." The ceremony was held in the great hall, transformed for the occasion into a garden of white flowers and trailing vines. The entire kingdom had turned out to celebrate, nobles and common folk, alphas and betas and omegas standing together as equals. That had been Silver's request too. No hierarchy today, just people celebrating love. She walked down the aisle with her arms bare, her scars visible for everyone to see. She felt the eyes on her, the curiosity, the surprise, the admiration. These marks that had once been her shame were now her crown, proof of what she had survived, proof of her strength. Kaelin watched her approach with an expression of such naked devotion that her breath caught. 300 years of loneliness, finally ending. A lifetime of pain, finally healed. Two scarred souls, finding wholeness in each other. The vows were ancient, spoken in the old tongue of the Lycan people. But when the formal words were done, Kaelin added his own. "I take you as my wife, my mate, my queen," he said, his voice ringing through the hall. "I vow to protect you, to honor you, to cherish you in all things. But more than that," his voice roughened with emotion, "I vow to spend every day of my eternal life proving that your scars are not marks of shame. They are badges of survival. They are proof of your strength, and they are beautiful to me because they are part of you." Silver's eyes burned with tears, but she didn't look away. "I take you as my husband, my mate, my king," she replied. "I vow to stand beside you, to support you, to love you with everything I am. 6 months ago, I was a broken Omega hiding her scars, convinced she would never be worthy of love. Then you pushed back my sleeve and asked who had hurt me." She paused, steadying herself, and for the first time in my life, someone cared about the answer. You didn't see damaged goods. You saw a survivor. You saw someone worth loving. I will spend the rest of my days being grateful that you did." "The rest of your days," he murmured, "and then some." He kissed her, deep, thorough, claiming, and the hall erupted in cheers. The feast that followed was magnificent, but Silver barely noticed the food or the wine. She was too focused on Kaelin, on the warmth of his hand in hers, on the way he looked at her like she was the center of his universe. At some point during the celebration, an Omega woman approached her. Young, barely more than a girl, with sleeves pulled down over her wrists in a way that Silver recognized all too well. "Your Majesty," the girl whispered, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to say, seeing you up there with your scars showing—" She swallowed hard. "I didn't know we could do that. I didn't know we were allowed to not be ashamed." Silver's heart clenched. She reached out and took the girl's hands, gently pushing back her sleeves to reveal the marks beneath. Fresh, angry, the work of someone cruel. "What's your name?" "Mira, Your Majesty?" "Mira." Silver held her gaze. "Listen to me very carefully. Your scars are not your shame. They belong to the people who put them there. And in this kingdom, under my protection, no one will ever add to them again." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "You don't know what they—" "I know exactly what they did. I know, because they did it to me too. Silver pulled the girl into an embrace, feeling her tremble. But it's over now. You're safe here. And one day you'll wear your scars proudly the way I do, because they prove you survived. When she released the girl, Kalen was watching from a few feet away. His expression was soft with love and fierce with pride. "Making royal decrees already?" he asked, once Mira had disappeared back into the crowd. "Making promises?" Silver moved to his side. "I want to establish a sanctuary, a place where Omegas who have been hurt can come to heal, where they can learn that they're not alone, that their scars don't define them, that they deserve love just as much as anyone else." "Then we'll do it." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Whatever you need, whatever it costs, we'll make it happen." "You don't even know what I'm planning." "I don't need to. I trust you." He tilted her chin up to meet his eyes. "You know this pain better than anyone. You know what these Omegas need because you needed it too. I can't think of anyone better suited to help them heal." She kissed him, soft and sweet, with all the love she had been afraid to feel for so long. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too, more than I can ever express." Later that night, in the privacy of their chambers, Kalen traced the scars on her arms with gentle fingers. He kissed each one, the old ones, the faded ones, the ones that would never fully disappear. "Beautiful," he murmured against her skin. "Every single one. They used to make me feel ugly. They make you real." He looked up at her, his golden eyes blazing. "They make you a survivor. They make you the woman I love." Silver pulled him up and kissed him properly, pouring everything she felt into the contact. Gratitude, hope, a love so deep it still sometimes frightened her. She fell asleep in his arms, wrapped in warmth and safety, and the knowledge that she would never have to hide again. She dreamed of scars that turned to silver, gleaming in the light. 1 year later, Silver stood on the balcony of the Queen's chambers, watching the sun rise over the mountains. In her arms, a newborn daughter slept peacefully. Dark hair like her father, delicate features that would one day be beautiful. Kalen came up behind her, wrapping his arms around them both. "You're brooding," he said. "I'm reflecting. There's a difference." And what are you reflecting on?" She leaned back into his warmth, feeling their daughter stir against her chest. "I was thinking about the day we met. How terrified I was when you pushed back my sleeve. How certain I was that you would be disgusted by what you saw. And instead? And instead, you looked at me like I was precious, like my scars made me more beautiful, not less." She turned her head to look at him. "You changed everything that day, Kalen. You changed me. You changed yourself." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "I just gave you the space to do it." Their daughter made a soft sound, her tiny hand curling around Silver's finger. So small, so perfect, unmarked by the cruelty of the world. "She'll never know what it's like," Silver said quietly. "To be hurt like I was, to carry those scars. No, she won't. We'll make sure of it. But she'll know the stories. She'll know what her mother survived, and one day, when she's old enough, she'll help run the sanctuary." Silver looked down at her daughter's peaceful face. "She'll learn that scars aren't shameful, that survivors are strong, that everyone deserves to be loved." What should we name her? Silver thought about it, about the girl she had been, cowering and afraid, about the woman she had become, standing tall in a crown, about the journey between them, the pain and the healing, and the love that had made it all possible. Hope, she said finally. I want to name her Hope, because that's what you gave me, Kaelin. When I had nothing else, when I didn't believe I could survive, you gave me hope. His arms tightened around her. Hope. It's perfect. The sun continued to rise, painting the mountains in shades of gold and rose. Silva held her daughter close and marveled at the impossible journey that had brought her here. She had spent years trying to hide her scars, had believed they made her damaged, worthless, unlovable. But the Lycan king had seen them and whispered, "Who hurt my mate?" And in that moment, everything had changed. She was no longer the Omega who hid in shame. She was a queen, a wife, a mother, a survivor who wore her scars like silver, proudly, for all the world to see. And she would spend the rest of her life showing others that they could do the same.